Asia Tech Podcast. Voice of the Asian tech ecosystem.
Welcome to episode number 7 of Ashley Talks. Today we have a fantastic guest with us. We have Owen Fitzpatrick. Owen, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Ashley. Pleasure to be on.
So who is Owen? We in Asia don't know him that well, but this is such a huge guy. Guys, I'm so thrilled to be here today and actually bring you this gem. Owen is an international best-selling author. He actually authored 6 books, and they were translated to over a dozen languages. Besides that, he is a globetrotting psychologist. He travels all around the world. He's been to more than 100 countries and he studies psychology. He talks about influence. He talks about storytelling, leadership. He is a TED speaker. He's an actor and filmmaker. And by the way, talking about his TED Talk, it's been watched almost 1 million times. So I'm so thrilled to have Owen here. And again, we are going to learn a lot today. So Owen, perhaps it's better that you tell your story. How come you are all of those things, psychologist and author and actor and all that in one? Tell us your story.
Asia Tech Podcast. Find out more at atp.show.
Well, I suppose what's happened is that at a very early age, I struggled with, depression. I struggled with sort of self-esteem problems. And so when I was a teenager, I began to, look for a way out of that, look for strategies that might help me. So I started studying psychology. I started studying even hypnosis. I started studying an area called NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming. Mm-hmm. And from all of that, I began to learn certain skills that I was able to use on my mind because I needed them. I was a teenager. At some point, I was suicidal. I was very, very down and found it very difficult even to communicate that well with people. So all of these different psychological tools helped me. And I began a journey which I suppose I started out at a very young age, working as a therapist with people, helping people when I was very young. And at the same time, studying psychology in university as well. So I started out quite, I threw myself into the deep end quite quickly. And from that, I got a lot of experiences. And I was lucky enough to, get to know the co-creator of NLP, Dr. Richard Bandler. And from there, I started getting opportunities to teach abroad and to other countries, teaching seminars on communication, on how to become happier, on NLP itself. And from there, I got invited around. I got to go to places like India, places like Japan, places like Colombia. And so I got to travel the world quite extensively, worked in Thailand and Malaysia and Indonesia as well. So I got to meet a lot of people and work with a lot of people. And then my books were obviously being sold in a lot of those countries. So from there on in, I developed a lot of sort of a fascination with other cultures. And that's what drew me towards flying anywhere and everywhere I could and exploring new places. I went to North Korea, I went to Afghanistan, I went to Africa and Rwanda and stuff. And it was all with a view to try to understand more about, how people communicate there and how people are influenced there. Because that's my real interest, is how do we influence ourselves and how do we influence other people? And how does propaganda work? And, what are the things that tend to affect the way in which we live our lives? And so that became a question that I became completely and totally curious to answer. So I traveled the world a lot. I talked to an awful lot of people. I taught a lot of seminars. I had a TV show in Ireland for a couple of years where I presented a show helping people with regards to their productivity and effectiveness. And then I started getting into the creative writing and the acting side of things. I kind of did a couple of small courses during the summer in New York, and I started writing short films, and the short films tended to do quite well. I acted in them as well, and I won a few awards, just at small film festivals, and just kept working away. So now currently, I suppose I'm spending about 50% of my time in Ireland, 50% working abroad. I tend to work with companies and work with, CEOs and stuff, doing either high performance coaching or, working with them on teaching them how to use stories or how to influence each other more effectively or influence the customer more effectively. And that's kind of the area that I'm in now. So it started out from a personal need to be able to improve my own life and to change the way I thought. And now I kind of, I suppose, all those years later, I'm speaking to others, trying to make a difference to others, and also at the same time, exploring the creativity and the power, the impact you can make with screenplays and with acting and stuff like that. So all in all, I think, I've got so many things that I'm fascinated with. I've always been addicted to books and always been addicted to learning. So, I just keep trying to improve in different ways.
You just go for it, right? This is such an inspiring story.
Yeah, well, you see, the thing is, I think an awful lot of people tell themselves stories as to why they can't do something or why they shouldn't do something. And for me, one of the things I think it's important to accept is life is hard, but, and you can't get everything you want. But the reality is that given that, you have to do the very best you can and push yourself to embrace, failure and embrace the fact that you're not going to get everything right first time. And once you're okay with it, then it gives you freedom. It gives you the freedom to be able to go for it. And I think so many people are terrified of failure, whereas I think, I've done a lot better. I'm okay with making mistakes. I'm okay with failing because I've done it so many times,
It was such a fascinating story. When you were telling, your story, like how you suffered in childhood and how that pushed you to actually go and transform your life first and then start helping people. It actually reminds me of a story of Tony Robbins, right? Tony's been through very similar experiences somehow, with a different angle, but he's also become one of the biggest, self-help and, life transformational coaches in the world, which is absolutely beautiful. And both of you are talking about this NLP. So that's the beginning of your story. And I want to also start there. NLP right now has, I would say, a strange reputation. A lot of people consider it an evil cult. That, would you agree or not? I do not know, Owen. You are a professional, but I hear a lot of people and a lot of marketers and obviously salespeople are using that. And right now, a lot of commoners, right, consider that an evil cult. So tell us, what is that NLP in reality? What is it? Is it evil or is it good?
Okay, I don't think there's any conversation in the world where I'll say, "Oh, NLP is evil," since look, NLP is something that's helped me change my life, and I don't go around the world talking NLP. I've written a few books on the subject, but at the end of the day, it's a set of tools that allows you to change the way in which you think and feel, and helps you influence other people more effectively. Now, the reason why people have this idea that, it's cultish or whatever is, number one, because whenever a bunch of people get very passionate about something and say it can make a huge difference or change your life, then automatically a lot of more skeptical people will go, oh, well, that must be a cult, because they see how, people change or how happy people are, et cetera, et cetera. The reality is that it's like anything that works. It's going to create a lot of fans. It's going to create a lot of people. Now, the reality is it's not perfect. It doesn't solve all problems. And there's a lot of other psychological tools that you could use in combination with it. So, it's not that it solves everything, but it is a great set of tools. And it allows you to be able to overcome a lot of challenges easily. Now, again, because it's not perfect, it's good to use it with other aspects of, psychology. But in reality, in terms of the idea that people get that idea sometimes as well because, it allows you to influence other people more effectively. And some people have this idea that you're not supposed to influence others. You're not supposed to, be more persuasive. You're not supposed to study that stuff, And the reality is we do it all the time. Like, I'm sure, Ashley, as soon as you smile at someone, you make them feel good. And, does that mean that if you smile at them, you're likely to make them feel good. Now, does that mean you're manipulating them, that you're evilly trying to make them feel good against their will? Of course not. We influence each other all the time. Even the many of the people that are detractors that say, it lets you manipulate people. They're trying to manipulate people in their posts, in their rants or their bursts online. When they troll, they're saying, NLP helps them, and they're trying to persuade people that NLP is bad, which is pretty much using some manipulative tactics. Sometimes they even use NLP to try to say that it's bad. And they're not aware of the fact that they're using it, because NLP it's not some new technology. It came about from studying what the most successful therapists did to be able to get results. So
Right.
it was born in studying what therapists did to help people get results. And it allows you to understand more about how change works. And anything that lets you know how change works is going to be scary to some people, because the reality is, like any tool, it can be used by people in a negative way or a positive way. I choose to believe that whenever you use any sort of set of tools for evil purposes or selfish purposes, it's going to come back on you. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if it's NLP or if it's rhetoric, or it's certain therapeutic methods, or it's even using the media in certain ways and marketing strategies. There's ways to use it for good, there's ways to use it for bad, but it's a set of tools. Marketing is a set of tools. People don't go, well, some people do go, marketing is evil, but in
Right.
reality, marketing is the way it is. And you have to look at, well, how do you position or how do you help people if you can make a difference to them? And NLP is one set of tools that lets you make a difference to them. And it's by no
Right.
means the only set of tools I use, but certainly it made a big difference to me. I spent a lot of time, I've written a few books with Dr. Richard Bandler, the co-creator, and he's one of my mentors. And, I can only talk about my own life being improved and stuff.
Right.
And, people in this age tend to get outraged very easily and come up with ideas. Oh, it's this, it's that, it's the other. That's why I laugh when it's like the idea of a cult,
Right.
I don't ever wear robes. And ask people to pray at my feet whenever I teach. Maybe I should start doing that, but
Well,
I
that's
don't
a
know if
relief.
robe
You
would
can
suit me.
you can come to Asia. That's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So would you suggest people to learn it? Because I feel that, there's a lot of great things that NLP can actually teach people. Yeah. Because we're influencing, as you say, everybody's influencing everybody. And why not do it consciously? And why not also to notice the way other people, and as you say, sometimes marketers or politicians try to influence yourself. So would you encourage, the average Joe's to actually understand some principles and know the set of rules? Or would you say it's primarily for professionals that are trying to make an impact and it needs to be, used more responsibly and it's not for everybody?
No, I mean, anyone can learn NLP and it'll be useful. What I would say is you have to have an interest. You should have an interest in like the mind and psychology, and you should be open to it. But if you are open to it, it's a great set of tools that'll help you, from anything to being a better parent, to being a better, better in a relationship, to being a better teacher, being a better friend, being a better communicator in business, being a better leader. I mean, there's an awful lot of tools. Like I said, like in any case, anyone who's interested in personal or professional development, can get a lot of benefit from NLP. Like they can get a lot of benefit from coaching. Like they can get a lot of benefit from mindfulness, or meditation. When I visited, I go to Japan every year to teach seminars over there. And whenever I go over there, NLP is very big over there in Japan in particular. And they feel that it fits in very well with their culture. As opposed to some other techniques that might be big or popular in the States that aren't as popular in Japan, NLP tends to be popular because, again, it fits into the way in which they think about things. And I think it's something that carries regardless of where in the world you live. It's something that, it helps you understand yourself better. And I think it's not just about being able to improve the way, you impact others or, you're resistant to the influences from outside. It's also very much about how you're aware of the influence you have over yourself. So the fact that we create the wrong kinds of emotions in ourselves, we tend to talk to ourselves in ways that make us feel bad. And we generate negative feelings. And NLP kind of looks at that and goes, okay, imagine your brain is a computer. How can you reprogram your brain so that you're not, pressing the same program over and over again, a program that makes you feel stressed or depressed or, or demotivated or, feeling bad about who you are. So instead, what would it be like if you were able to be aware of how you think and then change that program so that you can, feel a lot better. Not so you can feel happy all the time, but so you can feel a lot better than you normally do. That's the kind of the way in which NLP looks at the way we communicate with ourselves.
Fantastic. And you talk a lot about influence, and NLP is just one way to influence yourself and others and be influenced. Right now, most of the people in business, at least here in Asia, start looking towards personal branding and building this kind of personal professional influence in business and at workplace. And it's something rather new. You know, in the US, probably the culture is a bit more, welcoming towards this kind of expression. But in Asia, it's still very new. And in Europe, it's also new. But people adapt it, and people try to put themselves out there, start blogs, vlogs, write books, etc. What do you think helped you to build such a strong business brand? How have you become a real influencer? Do you think that this is, as many people say, the only way to go forward? Can you really afford not to build your personal brand if you want to do business long term in this age?
Well, I think there's always exceptions to every rule.
Yeah.
But I would say overall, for example, answering about how I built up. I mean, the reality is that one of the things that I would suggest to anyone in my space, and my industry is a little different because I am my own product, if you know what I mean. So it's not like I have a product that I'm branding or a company that I'm branding per se. I am the product. So because of that, I've had to be very aware over, my own way of communicating and my own way of delivering speeches and trainings and books and stuff. But I would say two things. Number one, I think it's really important to have an obsession with continuously improving and getting better. And just like quality control, if you have a product, you're working to make it better. Well, if you work for yourself, then you have to make yourself better and you have to keep improving. So one thing would be working on myself and making it so that I keep, adding tools and strategies and skills. I still attend at least one course every year. And sometimes more than that. Again, trying to take all of the insights I get there and apply it to developing the programs or the speeches that I already deliver. But the second thing would be, and this is, around about branding as well, is that it's really important to find out how you're unique, not just how you're better. So a lot of people talk about the unique selling point, the USP or so, or unique selling proposition. And they sort of look and go, right, double down on that from a competitive strategy point of view. You got to focus on, whatever your USP is and what makes you better than the rest. But they don't spend enough time talking about your USD, your unique selling difference. What makes you unique, not necessarily better than anyone, but makes you you, and give a bit of personality to it. The idea of branding is that when people see your product, they get a positive feeling and a positive thought in their head as a response. So the idea is that when they see your brand, it makes them feel something and it makes them think something. And that's what branding is all about. And the keys with branding would be things like consistency, making sure that every single time they see you, they get that reaction. They feel the same feeling and they get the same thought. And clarity, it means that you're very clear over exactly what you want them to feel and exactly what you want them to think. And those kind of things are important. And so in order to be able to make sure you're doing that, you have to find a way of differentiating yourself, not just in terms of what your advantages are, but just differentiating yourself. And one really important thing to do in that front is to make yourself unique. Give yourself, whatever your authentic personality is, let that be the authentic personality for your brand. So, in other words, for years, I started a YouTube channel, and I was told by most of my, friends or whatever, or marketing experts, you need to be professional and try to copy people like Tony Robbins and just be smiley and, tell people stuff and be super passionate. But that wasn't me. I have a very different style. I'm Irish. And, we're a little bit more cynical. We're a little bit more, we use humor a lot more. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We're not too intense. A lot of the time. So, whenever I was doing that, I didn't feel like myself. So then I changed it and I started doing what I call sarcastic series, which is a set of videos where I, teach the opposite of what I want you to do. So I go, here's the 5 secrets to being nervous in public. Here's the 3 secrets to being really depressed. Here's the 6 secrets to being more stressed out. And what happens is it's like reverse psychology. You watch it, but whereas I'm pretending to teach you the wrong stuff to do, you're actually learning the other stuff. But it allowed me to be myself because that's my natural way of communicating. I'm using humor a lot and I'm being cynical a lot. And so because of that, as soon as I started to do the videos in my own way, as soon as I showed the world the real me with my sense of humor, immediately it got picked up. People appreciate it a lot more. And I think the key is to be able to show yourself more to the world, because the reason that people don't stand out is because they try to fit in. And if you try to fit in all the time, then what happens is that you just become yet another business. But if you let yourself stand out, if you explore who you really are, if you let people see the authentic real you, then something magical happens, and you start to make a real impact, and people start to notice you. And that's one of the biggest changes I made from a branding point of view. And then in terms of whether or not people need to learn this over the years, I think it is really important. And I think because of globalization, we've more competition than ever before. We've got more people competing with us. Companies are starting, probably thousands of companies are starting every single day on the internet. And so in order for you to stand out in a crowded marketplace, you need to make people, remember you. And the only way to make people remember you is, as I said, being unique, doing something different. And then once you do that, giving more value than anyone else is given. So I think, if you listen to any of the great marketing experts out there, like Gary Vaynerchuk and stuff, what they'll be continuously telling you is give value, keep giving as much as you can to people, for free. And then when you do charge, people will be more likely to pay, because again, if all that stuff was for free, think about how amazing the value will be if we pay,
Right. No, this is absolutely beautiful. I love it how you said you need to figure out what makes you you. And a lot of people really try to copy somebody else's success, and they are lost in between. So Sorry, I'll just add to that.
I've seen people try to do Tony Robbins. Now, I'm very different from Tony, right? And, I respect the work he's done. He wouldn't be he wouldn't be someone that I would model or look to and stuff like that. But I still respect what he's done. And I respect how good a speaker he is and how good a motivational trainer he is. But the reality is I've seen so many people try to be like Tony Robbins. And, it's at best, it's poor. And at worst, it's very, cringeworthy, because there is only one Tony Robbins. He's like 6'7" or something. He's, got a strong presence to him. He has a sort of a very strong, unique personality to him, and he's very much himself. And so when other people try to be like that, it just never works. You can, even if you dress like him, and you try to talk like him, and you say the same stuff he says, it's a terrible photocopy and it doesn't work. And you really need to find the real you. You need to do things your way. And you can learn from people like Tony. Tony Robbins himself learned from my mentor, Dr. Richard Bandler, and also Jim Rohn, and probably a whole host of other speakers who are all amazing. Like Jim Rohn is a legend as well. And so he learned from those, but Tony didn't try to be like, Jim, or try to be like Richard. He didn't copy them. He did his own thing. And I think that's really important. Sorry, I just wanted to follow.
Definitely. And you mentioned very interesting thing. You said that you need to keep growing if you want this personal brand, and you need to find your authentic you, and you need to keep growing, expanding yourself. What was the tool that you've learned in the past year or 2 years that was really, really valuable, that you brought in and are using now?
Well, I suppose I always try to keep up to date on anything to do with the area of influence and persuasion and stuff. But an awful lot of the stuff over the years, because I've been, I suppose, so nerdish about it, and I've read so much and I'm very well versed in it, there's not been a massive amount new in that area that I've learned. But what I have been doing a lot of is the idea of learning about stories, and not just stories but in terms of, screenwriting, but stories applied to business. And so I've been, spending a bit of time studying what we call storynomics. It's created by a guy called Robert McKee, and Robert McKee is one of my screenwriting mentors. He basically, has like 60 or 80 Oscar winners that have gone to his seminars. He's probably the most well-known screenwriting guru on the planet. But he's recently, over the last few years, started to apply story to business. Now, I've been doing that myself, quite a lot. But I've learned a number of tools from studying the area of story and how it applies to business, and how to use it to be able to, improve your brand, to be able to market more effectively, to sell more effectively. And so now a lot of the work I do is going into companies, working with them, teaching them exactly what they need to know about telling stories, but also working with them on creating their own origin stories, or creating their own brand stories, or their own customer stories, or their own product stories. And by doing so, helping them to be able to improve the way they communicate, the way they lead, the way they market, the way they sell, the way they present. And so that's something that I really am intrigued with. And the main reason I'm intrigued with it is because, from my point of view, I love story. I love creativity. And I've always been doing influence and working with businesses. So this is like bringing together two parts of my world.
Yeah.
You know, the love that I have for, you know, screenwriting and story creating and, applying useful practical skills and tools to the business world to help them to transform their businesses. So it's kind of a lot of fun because of that.
And how shall companies tell stories, and what kind of stories shall they be telling? I mean, this is such an interesting thing. I've heard it again and again, and I think I understand, and I'm sure many of our listeners understand that, you know, you need to tell stories to your staff, you need to tell stories to your customers, and you need to do, you know, probably you also need to tell stories to yourself before you can tell stories to your customers and staff.
Yeah.
But how does this, storynomics actually work? How can people like you come in and help? And can you give any examples of successful transformation? That would be very, very interesting.
Sure. So for example, a lot of people have an idea they think they know what story means when they talk about it from a business point of view. So they go, oh, you need stories. And they mix it up because they talk about Instagram stories or Facebook stories. But Instagram stories and Facebook stories are not stories. If I put up the fact that I'm eating some jam, and then I put up another photo of me eating a carrot, that's not, I'm not building a story there. No one is going to go to for example, you know, no one goes to the movies and goes, oh, look at that guy eating jam. Oh, now he's eating a carrot. Wow. Like people, you know, a story. And I really do believe that if we call everything a story, then it means nothing's a story. And so, you know, one of the most important distinctions I learned about story is that it requires a journey to happen, or it requires an experience to happen, where the main character, the protagonist, the hero, whatever, goes through and finds a challenge, or something goes wrong, in other words, and they have to try to overcome that challenge. And I think the majority of, you know, marketing out there tends to be people boasting or telling you, you know, this is how great our product is. We're great. Here's our features. Here's our benefits. We're great. Other people turn around and go, you know, if you don't do this, here's an image of, you know, the worst case scenario. We can help you stop this. You know, but they don't put the customer in a situation where the customer goes through a journey where by the end of it, the customer has the experience. Because every time we watch a story or every time we hear a story, we associate and identify with the protagonist. And we go through the same things that protagonist goes through, that main character goes through. So in terms of, you know, why tell stories? Stories are something that from the very time that we evolved, from our, you know, earliest times, hunter-gatherers, we tended to sit around the fire and tell stories before even the written word. You know, through the grunts that we had back then, we would tell each other stories. We communicate with each other in terms of stories. We'd share that. And every single religion out there has started as a result of the stories that were told from person to person, regardless of what has happened in reality or not. The stories are what made it so that this was built up, and what allowed so many people, so many millions of people across the planet to all combine and come close and believe in that. Money is another example. Again, money is something that the value of money and how important it is based upon the story that we've told around what money means. And so the majority of our worlds have been formulated and constructed and created by story. Story is what gives things value. And so whenever you're a business, if you want to be able to brand yourself effectively, if you want to be able to sell effectively, if you want people to think good things about your company, if you want people to do business with you, then your ability to tell story, to me, is the single biggest, most effective tool that you need to be able to learn to use. And again, it's not as simple as just telling people what happened. You know, an origin story isn't good enough for me to say, once upon a time there was this company and it came out of this. You know, there has to be a journey. So, you know, the different types of stories that you might work that I might work with a company on might be, you know, an origin story, you know, and that means them telling me what happened, you know, in terms of how whatever happened in terms of the past, and then me starting to ask questions and helping them understand, why did they come up with the solution they came up with? I mean, where did the product idea come from? You know, what was the challenge that they were facing in their life that made them come up with it? Because with every story, you need the challenge. You need what we call the monster or the problem or the villain or the challenge, the negative thing. And that's what stimulates us to take action. because every story has someone who has a goal and something gets in the way. That's in a nutshell, the basic structure of a story. And helping the company figure out the answers to those questions allows them to develop a powerful origin story, which in turn makes them more unique. Because, the one thing we know is when we think about Apple and we think about the origin story of Apple, the two Steves in the garage is something that instantly comes to mind. We know of that journey. And that's one of the things that makes Apple quite unique. If Apple, if the origin story of Apple was a bunch of computer technicians in a large conglomerate company, decided to formulate this new product, it just doesn't have the richness. It doesn't have the personality. And the origin story gives, a strong sense of personality to your product. So there's things like the origin story, there's product story, there's a customer story, which is when you tell stories of people that have been improved or, their lives changed or the business changed as a result of using your product. So again, you bring them through it. So you talk about the problem or the struggle that the customer is facing, where they looked, what they tried to do, and then when they finally overcame it, what they used to be able to overcome it. And so understanding the stories that will make the difference, like customer stories will be used primarily in marketing or sales. And they're the most important stories to be used in those contexts, because what they do is the hero in the story is the customer, not the business. And that's the mistake a lot of times businesses make. They're always trying to talk about how great they are. But, that's not honest. It's just blagging or bragging. And so what's important is to be able to be aware of the importance of stories, to learn how they work, which is what I go in and teach them. And then once I'm doing that, then it's about being able to help them to be able to go, right, so how can we create and cultivate powerful customer stories, powerful, product stories about how our products were developed, powerful origin or evolution stories about how we've evolved as a company. And so that's what I tend to do. I tend to go in there. Sometimes I work with companies in terms of helping them formulate advertisements or commercials, online, so that, help them come up with a way of, branding themselves, creating a powerful, strong feeling, usually using humor to make things stand out. In Asia in general, though, there's some commercials I've seen in South Korea and in Thailand, which have blown me away. Some very, very powerful, some of the
messages.
Life insurance companies have very strong, effective videos, which are like 2-3 minutes long, but like they're a story and very powerful. And it's not necessarily connected to life insurance, but there's a strong feeling there, and you associate that feeling with life insurance. So that's what I tend to do. I've worked with, cosmetics company on this and software company and stuff like that. And I'm always looking for what makes that company unique and what kind of emotions or feelings do they want to impact their customers to have. So to me, I love the work and I love the creative side of it, because that's one of the things that I tend to lean into.
That's fantastic. And I know that you've worked with Bank of Ireland and Coca-Cola and Google and, all those Pfizer and all those companies. So it's fantastic to see that these giants are actually, constantly learning, and that's why they are so good. And I think a few advertisings that you're referring to, I think some of those videos went viral on social media as well. China is doing fantastic job. Also in Philippines, a couple of companies, they create literally like mini movies, right? 3 to sometimes even 7-8 minutes all long. And only by the end of the movie, you figure out that actually, okay, they are talking about, life insurance. Or one of the advertising that I recently seen that went viral in China was about taxi service. Basically, Didi Da Che, it's like the Uber of China, right? So they were referring to their latest hot topic of women being like expected to marry up, not down, and parents being very strict and selecting the husband extremely strictly, and only by the end of that basically a little documentary show, they said, okay, in Didi we also choose our drivers very strictly, and it was really, really cool. So how to become a better storyteller? I know that you teach the whole course about that, but in a few bullet points, how can we all at work and in business become better storytellers?
Well, first of all, you have to figure out, who's the main character? The main character in most cases should be the customer, let's say. So if you're building a customer story, you're going like, who's your customer? And then you want to know, okay, so what's their, what's their goal? What does the customer want? And then you go, okay, so what negative event or negative thing or negative problem do they have that they struggle with, that that causes them problems, that you help them overcome? So let's say, for example, you create cleaning supplies. So your job is that you create cleaning supplies for a particular customers to be able to help them clean their home. What you would do is you have the customer, who's someone who would be representative of the target market that you're looking to connect with. So whatever, maybe that's a man or a woman, whoever's cleaning the home of a certain age, and then you would create a character of that person, and then establish how important it is for them to have a clean home, and then what are the problems with this. So what you're doing is you're giving the hero or the main character problems that stop them from achieving what they want. And instantly what that does is it makes everybody watching relate to them. Because even if you don't want the same thing that the hero wants, we all know what it's like to want something and not to be able to get it. And as soon as we see someone else want something and not to be able to get it, our brain releases a chemical called oxytocin, which is a love hormone, which basically makes us feel more connected to people. And we actually feel connected to the main character that we're following through the journey. And once that connection is made, then the next thing we need to be able to do is to make sure that the stakes are high. So by the stakes being high, I mean that the problem has to be a proper problem. So it's not good enough to say, do you ever get tired of your house being a little bit untidy? It has to be, how awful is it when you walk into your house and stuff is everywhere and you see dirt all over the place, and you see the dog walking in with muck on his shoes, muck on his paws and dirty paws, and you see people, the kid coming home and throwing his bag down, and football boots or whatever, and there's just mud everywhere, and you want to be able to up the stakes, because nobody wants to go to read a book where small problem. People want to read about big problems, because big problems garner attention, they grab our attention more. So there has to be big stakes. And someone once said, if you go to a movie, the greater the villain, the greater the story. So in other words, the greater that you have the villain, the better the hero needs in order to overcome the villain. The hero needs to be stronger to do that. So therefore, you make it really, an intense problem. You make sure that the solution is strong as well. And then once you've done that, then you've helped them overcome that. You've helped them go through that process. Then the next thing is to be able to make sure that there's a clear sort of, from a business perspective, there's a clear sort of understanding of the call to action. So there's a clear way of how the guide helps. So there's the guide, which is the company, how the guide helps the hero to overcome the monster. So the hero tries to deal with the monster, can't do it. And then they get the help from the guide, and the guide helps the hero overcome the monster so that the hero can, achieve their goal. And so the company is the guide. So you have to figure out what specific things that you do, what unique selling points and unique selling differences.
What's your magic?
You want the guide, what's the magic exactly? And what do you want the guide to be able to do? And how do you want them to be able to do it? Because the guide symbolizes the company. And when you do it, again, the customer is watching the story or listening to the story. They're putting themselves in the shoes of the customer. They're going through the experience and they're being helped by the guide. And so the key is to have that structure down so that you understand exactly what you're doing, to make sure that you're raising the stakes, and to make sure that you always have that positive negative. You have, the hero faces the problem. They struggle, they suffer, they hate the fact that muck is all over the floor. It makes them feel bad. But then they learn from the guide. The guide gives them the magic, as you say. That magic they use, it totally changes things, and they're able to, keep their house clean, and therefore they live happily ever after. And again,
end.
That's the key. Exactly. So, that's the key to some of the stuff. But obviously, there's an awful lot more in depth to that. It depends on the type of story you want to tell. It depends on who your audience is. But that's just some basic tips that might help become a better storyteller.
So would you say, if you are delivering a presentation, so you are doing a lot of public speaking, right? Would you say that when you are delivering presentations, you are also telling a story, and you also need to have those elements? Would you agree with that or not?
Oh, completely. I mean, I think the biggest mistake people make is they drown others in data and information.
Facts.
And data means nothing unless you storify it, unless you put it into a story. So I think the biggest thing to do if you want to become a better presenter or a better speaker is you need to make sure that you're using stories. I mean, all you have to do is look at TED Talks. I mean, 99.9% of all TED Talks use stories as their main vehicle of teaching. Harvard case studies, are the main source of teaching for Harvard Business School. Now, Harvard case studies are case studies which are really stories, in-depth stories. And so if the very best in the world tend to be using stories for presenting, politicians do it all the time. But if the very best in the world are using stories to put their points across, to influence, then, it's saying something. And what it's saying is that stories should be used in any presentation as your main vehicle of communicating your message, because people remember stories more. They're impacted not just logically, but emotionally. And emotional impact is the most underrated part of influencing people in terms of business. And stories are something that instantly are entertaining and grab and keep attention the entire way through a speech. So I believe it's essential, if you want to be a good speaker, that you master the art of storytelling.
Absolutely. And I know that you spoke at, you shared the stage with a lot of great people like Richard Branson and Thies Gott and basically Jean-Claude Van Damme. Who is your favorite public speaker? Or are there a few people that you probably look up to and you would say they consistently deliver great stories? Who shall people, not copy, but at least check out and learn from?
Well, look, you've got some great motivational speakers. If you look at, my mentor, Dr. Richard Bandler is amazing, a genius, and he's his own style. He's a brilliant storyteller. Tony Robbins is great, especially with the energy and the jumping up and down and stuff. He's a strong speaker and stuff like that. So he's good. Jim Rohn, who's passed away now, but he was like the wise old man. He was a fantastic communicator, great speaker, really was able to impact people very, very powerfully. Gary Vaynerchuk is very charismatic on stage, and he's quite powerful to listen to. He's from the marketing side, Gary Vaynerchuk. Then there's, obviously there's some great female speakers as well. There's, some powerful
I was just
women
about to
in that
ask.
space. Yeah. There is. The difference is that oftentimes there's not yet enough women that push themselves up there. There's a few, but there's not enough women that push themselves up there and show just how powerful they can be. Like, I work with a lady here in Ireland called Margaret Considine, and Margaret is one of the top people in negotiation, I believe, in the world. But she's phenomenal teacher, absolutely phenomenal. So knowledgeable, so engaging, so brilliant. I mean, she's an incredible speaker, incredible communicator. But the reality is, unfortunately, the industry does tend to have, at least in my experience, significantly more men at present. But I believe that women, have the capacity and ability to be, just as good, if not better, than men in this space, because, it requires your ability to be able to, impact people's emotions and connect. And I think, there's a lot of women out there that are extraordinarily charismatic and extraordinarily able to impact people. Just like you see more of the world's leaders tend to be women than before in past times. You've got like Angela Merkel in Germany. You've got Theresa May in terms of
definitely
England or UK or whatever. And you have Hillary Clinton almost won the election. I mean, I think it's you have now. I think women. There's definitely a movement I've seen, at least in the Western world, and I presume it's influenced the East as well, where women are finally getting a little bit more of what they deserve. It's still not enough, but certainly they're starting to become they're starting to move up in the ranks and get get more attention and stuff. And I'm hoping that continues because to me, I think it's really important that we men and women, although accept that we're different in many ways, we deserve to be treated equally. Women deserve to be getting paid, the same amount for the same job.
Definitely.
They deserve to be respected and appreciated the same way men are. And I think the danger is sometimes we risk, sometimes people go over the top and you're not allowed to speak. And, you know, the social justice warriors means you can't say anything these days. You know, like sometimes you'll get in trouble by saying men and women are different, even though they are.
They are
and so
different. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, I think it's going a little too far from that point of view. There's so many things that we need to be focusing on if we want to be able to help women, you know, get more rights, because there is so many different areas that they're treated as, you know, not as important as men and stuff. So we need to focus on those and not get ludicrous over words or over, you know, jokes or over, you know, that kind of stuff, and more focus on the policies and focus on getting women into positions of power and, you know, getting women to be able to, you know, own their own, you know, own their own authenticity. A lot of times
and
there's
not
incredible
competing
women
with men, but being
Yeah.
women and being successful.
Exactly.
And Owen, I mean, it's unbelievable. You're
Exactly.
just like, you're literally, I'm now preparing for the TED Talk, and I'm going to talk about women in businesses and workplace. Exactly.
Brilliant.
About this, changing the perspective, because right now all of us are focusing on the problem. The problem is business is male dominated. The problem is, you know, some women are discriminated or not treated fairly. The problem is, but we are not looking past the problem. Let's find the role models. Let's find women that actually succeeded, not by growing the balls and competing with men, but succeeding because they were women. Let's find what can other women and men learn from them. And because we have so few role models, and because women have psychology that is, you know, a bit more dependent on what people think about us, we are not putting ourselves out there. So, I mean, I totally agree. And that is why, please.
Yeah, sorry, just on that, I think, what you said there is very, very important and very, very true. What I think one of the things is that I think in the business world, for example, and it's true in my industry as well, there's an awful lot of, we all feel sometimes that we all feel, I think most people have the imposter syndrome going on, where we feel, you know, we're almost like faking it. We don't know what we're at, blah, blah, blah. Whereas men are much more comfortable with being able to do that. So men are comfortable with being incompetent and stepping up there and pretending that they're competent, even though inside they feel incompetent. Whereas women, when they feel incompetent, a lot of times don't push themselves out there. They lose it. And the reality is that that's one of the things, is that a lot of times the difference between men and women in terms of business is the men tend to, you know, be more confident than they should, whereas women aren't as confident as they should. So because of that, men are pushing themselves into positions that necessarily they don't deserve, whereas women aren't pushing themselves into situations
blocking
that they
themselves
deserve.
from opportunities.
Exactly. Because you can't control what the, you know, in some countries or some aspects, what the male hierarchy is doing. You can't control that. You can't stop that from happening, you know, straight away. You have to find ways of getting to positions of power to be able to change that. But all you can do is focus on all you can do. And that means focusing on what is within my control, and what is it that I'm able to do. And, you know, for some people it's going to be harder, for some people it's easier, even in terms of, you know, civil rights. You know, if you're a minority in most countries, you're going to struggle more than someone who is, you know,
belongs
fits into
to a
that
different group.
culture. Exactly. And so what you need to do in those cases is you might need to work harder than them. And is that fair? No, but it's not about what's fair. It's about what it is. And it is what it is, as they say. And so the key is, I think that, you know, I think it's fantastic that you're doing this TED Talk, because when you do speak to the audience, it's an important message that people need to get, and a message, as you said, about not, you know, turning around and trying to, you know, compete with men, but, you know, being yourself and doing it in your way and showing your uniqueness. Exactly.
And you can be successful, and you can be extremely successful, and men can also learn from that experience. Besides that, I also feel that a lot of women that are hearing about, you know, all the problems, even if they have not been experiencing this, let's say, discrimination in their life, they also get dispowered. So we're not empowering them, but dispowered. They say, okay, well, business is male dominated. I'm not even going to try. Or there are, you know, we are paid less. Okay, I'm not going to try. You know, this is just the way things are. And the other breed of women, actually, and I am a woman and I'm in business, and I, you know, I've been through, let's say, also a transformation, and I can talk about it. But most of the people, as you said, said, are not even allowed to talk about it. A lot of women feel entitled. Like in the corporate world, she thinks she's going to be promoted just because she's a woman. And right now, they want more women in boardrooms. And this is just shocking. I mean, it cannot swing those ways. Or in my husband is working in a big corporate, and they have literally the rule that says you cannot walk into the lift, into the elevator with another woman if you are alone. Can you imagine? So if you are in the States, you cannot enter the lift. And this is the rule that and this is not like one example, right? It's a lot of corporates, a lot of companies. So you come into US and you basically, you are afraid to enter that lift, because if this woman feels that you are, looking at her in some less appropriate way, you can get into trouble. And can you imagine what does that create in people?
Yeah.
And this is not helping. Yeah. And we need to talk about it, because if a man told you that, I'm sure there would be a revolution and women would go on the streets.
Yeah. But you see that's the problem is that, and I know as a guy, I like what you just said there, I couldn't argue that point. Because I would be called an apologist for sexual assault, and to put it out straight, it's disgusting the fact that there are men out there that have taken advantage of women and sexually assaulted them, and whether it's in business or whether it's not, using power and stuff like that, it's awful. And these people, they're just they disgust me. The problem is, as you pointed out, is that when we go it's like we always need to go in extremes. It's like as soon as something happens, then all of a sudden let's go the exact
human
opposite
nature
way. And human nature goes and we literally, like a pendulum, we swing to the other side, and all of a sudden, before you know it, now you're not allowed to look at a person. I mean, being single anymore. I mean, I don't know. I saw something there on the news, a couple of months ago. And it was based on the Me Too campaign, which I think is great to get the word out, to let people know, look, this has happened to me as well. I think that's wonderful. I think it's a great campaign in many, many ways. The worrying thing is that when people, as you pointed out, when people jump on board that bandwagon and they do it just because, it makes them feel sort of, it lets them feel
belong somewhere.
Exactly, a sense of belonging. And like I saw someone complaining about, they were on some chat show, and the comedian that was in charge of the chat show flirted with them, and they accused the guy for flirting with them. And I'm thinking to myself, well, he was single. I'm thinking to myself, so now you're in a situation where you can't flirt anymore. I mean,
so you can never basically get a girlfriend or what?
Yeah, it's going to get to a point where you just go, okay, here's the deal. Could you find me on this dating app? And then swipe right on them, and then they've swiped right, now I can flirt. It's, I don't know. I think the most important thing is that we need to be rational about this and sensible. And what we need to do is we need to describe, specifically what is not on anymore, and and what is okay, and to be able to be clear about that, and to make sure that when people do the wrong kinds of things, they immediately face consequences as a result. And so, that means that instead of doing this ludicrous thing that you're not allowed to enter, a lift, it pretty much is saying that every man is a potential sexual assaulter.
Can you imagine that?
And
it's insane.
Absolutely insane. Because there's an awful lot of guys that don't even have the confidence to say hello to a woman, never mind sexually assault them. And so, if we're living a life where we're programmed in this way, then I don't know. I think we need to turn things around. And I think, I think men need to
and we are now
support
taking
women's
charge.
rights more. Yeah, I think men need to support women more and keep doing that and keep working on ensuring that women are treated equally and they're free from this, from this kind of, from becoming affected or assaulted by the wrong kind of men. But also at the same time, I think women need to make sure that, their fight for justice, which they deserve to have, they don't allow it to get too extreme, whereby men become evil, Satan, horrible, humans that are all problematic, because at the end of the day, I think, there's incredible men and incredible women, and there's, we'll call evil men, evil women and stuff. And
Yeah.
I think the majority of the world are incredible, and we just need
I'm
to,
1,000%
we need to get closer, you know.
with you on that.
Just
Absolutely.
in terms of women as well. So there's a couple I forgot. Oprah Winfrey is an excellent public speaker, very powerful, and probably the best female I've seen speaking in public would be Michelle Obama.
She's
if you
fantastic.
saw,
Yeah.
you know, some of the speeches she gave over the last, you know, a couple of years ago, absolutely outstanding, compelling, brilliantly presented. You know, she's a class act in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And so going back, I mean, from this whole very emotional subject, I mean, I'm very much on that train. So I'm extremely, extremely excited. We spoke about women in business as well. Going back to your whole story. So we spoke about you being social psychologist. We spoke about you being storyteller, and, you know, you shared a lot of great things. The last point there is that you are also the global trotter. So tell us about that. You've traveled the world. You've been from places, as you said, North Korea, Rwanda, Afghanistan. What have you learned from all those people and cultures? What pushes you, you know, what motivates you to keep going, to keep exploring? And where do you want to go next?
Well, I think there's so many lessons that I've gotten from traveling. I mean, I probably learned more from traveling than I have in all the years I've studied, you know, in university and stuff. You know, traveling allows you to open your eyes, especially when you go off the beaten track and you go to places that, you know, are very different to where you're from. So, you know, for me, the lessons that, you know, one of the key lessons I learned is being able to step out of my own shoes and step into the shoes of somebody else and seeing things from a completely different perspective. I think so often, even when we travel, but we're still in our own home country. So we see everything through the filter. And so what I tried to do when I went to each place is I'm just like, I'm the most annoying person to be around because I've just too many questions. So, you know, even like the dentist and the doctors, they hate when they see me coming. I'm sure they flinch because I'm just like, so what's going on? So why is this happening? So like I have a million questions for them because I'm just
How
chronically
can I
curious.
interpret that test by myself?
Yeah, exactly. So from my point of view, I kind of go to these places and I ask questions and I try to understand, you know, more about where they're from. You know, how they grew up, you know, what they deal with every day, what their philosophy is like. You know, I'm not the kind of person that goes to a country, you know, like, for example, Afghanistan and just, you know, sees the sights and talks superficially about things. I get down to the philosophical way of thinking and, you know, how they formulate their thinking and what their beliefs are, what their hopes and dreams are and their values. And that allows me to really get a good understanding of people that are radically different to me. And to me, that's one of the things as a writer or, you know, as a creator or even as an actor that that is essentially important for me. But really, you know, I think it is. Yeah, it's crucial to be able to empathize with that. So for me, it's just the ability to look at things from multiple perspectives, hearing things that you don't agree with, but, you know, you really understand and you really can connect with. And, you know, having been to all these places and been on lots of adventures and exciting adventures and stuff like that, you know, I feel that I've really enriched my, you know, my understanding of the world and of life. I feel that I've been lucky enough to see many different ways of thinking about life, which, you know, are really rewarding for me personally, as well as help inform my teaching and speaking and storytelling and stuff as well. And obviously I've got loads and loads of stories that I can use whenever I'm, you know, wherever I'm teaching and stuff, coming from the journeys I've taken. So it's been amazing. In terms of where next, I mean, there's not that many more countries that I have. You know, my aim was I wanted to visit 100 countries. Now, you know, I've been there. There's a couple, you know, Mongolia is the only one in Asia that I haven't been to that, you know, that I'm particularly motivated or excited to go to. But, you know, a lot of the places I've been to, I want to revisit, you know, like I'm lucky enough to go to Japan teaching workshops there every year. I'll be coming back in September to teach a couple of workshops there, which I'm excited about. And besides that, I have friends in different parts of the world that I'll visit. But, you know, for me, the things I want to do now is I'm kind of at the stage where, you know, hopefully at some point I'll meet someone and special someone. And I'd like to travel with somebody, because an awful lot of my traveling has been myself, and I'm glad of that. But now I'm at the stage where, you know, I want to be able to share Can you still hear me?
Yes, now it's back. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I want to be able to share the special times. That's what.
Ladies out there all across Asia and the world. I mean, Owen, is still single. This is unbelievable. I'm still shocked. I'm shocked right now. So ladies out there, I think they're going to be flooding your professional mailbox with proposals, how you could travel together and see what comes out of it. That's absolutely beautiful. And the last question here on traveling would be, what is your favorite country in the world, and what makes you feel or connect with it?
Ireland. I know it's a terrible answer because I'm from, this is my home. But, I love my home. I love my country. I love the people in Ireland. I mean, we're not perfect. There's sometimes there could be a bit of begrudgery, which is like when someone does too well, we're not always as supportive as we could be. But, that's the only weakness and that I can see. And I think we've a remarkable country, remarkable people. It's a beautiful country. It's one of the most beautiful countries on the planet. And it's incredible people, friendly and fun, loving and very funny and, very creative. So I have to say my favorite country in the world is Ireland. And after that, there's some amazing places, like I said, I love Japan, Thailand's amazing, China's fun, Malaysia and Singapore, and then you've Colombia and South America and Brazil and and Guatemala in Central America. The States is great in its own way. There's some amazing places there. In the Middle East, Lebanon is an incredible place. Palestine is great. Israel's beautiful. Jordan is amazing. In Africa, Rwanda is exceptional. Egypt is a stunning place. Morocco, incredible. I could go on and on.
Guys, I think our listeners now got a list of 30 countries they need to visit in the coming 5 years. This is absolutely beautiful. And I'm so happy you mentioned Ireland because we're going there next year with my husband. My husband is German and we plan our holidays a year in advance. So we already know all the holidays we're doing this year. And unfortunately, we didn't have time for Ireland this year. But next year, it's Ireland time. And I'm so excited you said that this is your favorite country. It's going to be magnificent and beautiful. And I'm so totally excited about it.
Reach out before you come over and let me know.
That's for sure. Definitely will. Owen, thank you so much for this fantastic chat. So much value shared, so much information. Tell us, how can our listeners contact you for all the fantastic things that you are doing? If they want to invite you as a coach or public speaker or, for any professional opinion.
If you go to owenfitzpatrick.com is my website and you can sign up for my sort of free newsletter and stuff. Also, I'm on social media, Owen Fitzpatrick International on Facebook. Again, you'll find me on Owen F23 on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. So if you are interested in hearing any stuff, I produce an awful lot of free content, a lot of free videos on YouTube as well on my YouTube channel. And I've also the TED Talk there. So if you do want, please subscribe to the YouTube or like the page or follow me on Twitter or Instagram and stuff. I would love to have more people that I'm in touch with from Asia, because as I said, I've so many wonderful memories of Asia, and I'd love to have more people that know of me there. So would love to see you on social media, anyone who is listening.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Guys, if you want to connect with Owen, we're going to put links just below. And of course, you can Google him and he's basically all over the place. Thank you so much again for being with us today.
Thanks, Megan.
Guys,
Ashley.
Subscribe. Don't forget to share this podcast out. And next week, we're going to have Virginia Tan, the president of Lean in China. So today we also covered a bit of female entrepreneurship and how women are making their own way forward. So we're going to talk more about that with Virginia next week. Stay in the loop and have a great day.
You've been listening to Asia Tech Podcast. Find out more at atp.show.